Okay, I'm showing 10 o'clock. Some people are still coming in, but we could probably go ahead and get started. I did put a little something in the chat because we have to change the planned training topic today for a couple of reasons, and Jennifer Renner can give us an update on that. So let's go ahead and go to Jen.
Good morning. Hopped on. Got me pretty quick here, but I am ready to roll. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, as Chris said, we had a change in topics last minute. So we were originally planning on giving a success story automation process training today. The update with that is the new success story automation process is moving forward. Reese Thomas from RDI is months in with building this tool. Like anything new, he has hit many speed bumps that has slowed the process down, but we feel we're past those big hurdles and we're definitely moving forward. And we're hoping to have a usable product, hopefully possibly in the next 2 weeks. Yesterday, we were able to give a demo to Chiefs Berlant, Bigelow, and McDougald, along with Christine McMorrow with comms. This demo included showing them how the auto notification of ignition sources landing near CalMapper fuels treatments work. It also included a walkthrough of the survey that will be included in the auto notification email. And lastly, Reese demonstrated all the products that can be produced from the survey results, including auto-generated reports, dashboards, and a GIS map display of our successes. The chief signed off on the automation process. The next step is to give a demo to the region chiefs and provide them an update on the intent of the policy and procedures that will support the data collection requests from Sacramento to the units. And once region approval happens, I believe we'll be able to start the testing process. And before we do that, I hope that we can somehow fit in a training demo to all you guys as well. The first phase, I'll just kind of do a quick overview. This will happen. We'll review this also in the training before we actually start the testing process with the units. But the first phase of testing is only the Sacramento personnel are going to receive auto notifications of the ignition points that land near the treatment perimeters. The Sacramento personnel will vet the data. If everything looks accurate, then we're going to forward that auto notification email to the appropriate unit and or program personnel to complete. As more testing happens, we will slowly add units to the auto notification process. That's where we stand for as of now with that. We're also looking at doing a name change, not calling our success stories, basically due to the fact that, you know, large incidents where on one part of the fire, we burn multiple structures, we have fatalities, injuries, whatever kind of negative incident happens. And on the other side of the fire, we might have a success where a treatment slows that fire or or helps the personnel. We don't feel like that is a success if something on the other side of the fire has something negative happen. So we're looking at changing the name to have some sort of the word effectiveness in it. And we have some names here that we're thinking of: pre-fire effectiveness, pre-fire engineering, effects monitoring. Christine McMorrow added in there that we would like to maybe have something in there as far as a wildfire prevention or fuels reduction and not pre-fire, because the public doesn't necessarily know what pre-fire means in our terms. So If anybody has any great ideas on a name change, we are all ears. And that's all I have to add on the update of our soon-to-be name change success stories.
Okay, and then I just wanted to add everybody on the call that I'm sure this has been, talked about in the past, but it's, while this season gets underway, we've got fires cracking off. Any kind of just be on the lookout for the possibility of one of our fuels reduction projects or VMPs or even defensible space inspections that have occurred that resulted in a landowner doing some work that may have had a positive effect on fire behavior or related, a line generated as a primary or secondary line, and even on larger incidents where secondary or a contingency line is created from based off of a project that we have implemented. And a lot of this is coming down to we want to be able to go to the policymakers, the legislation, and say, hey, look, we have some positive effect. All this cash flow is doing something, and that's really where a lot of this comes from. So this is, you guys are the best audience for this, because you're the first line knowing what's going on in the unit, and we want to hear from you guys on this. So I know it might seem like a little extra work, but it's going to go a long way in the future for getting additional funding, additional positions. It's going to be a good benefit to the whole department if we can get this out there. So please be diligent about searching and finding those stories for us. So, and then we're going to help support you guys as much as we can at the Sacramento level in order to, keep the messaging consistent. And then if you have questions about what constitutes a success, hit us up, and we may even travel to, if you identify something that has the potential to be a good story, we may, out of the Sacramento office, head to that site and take pictures, do a write-up. All this is based, all we're trying to do is prompt a potential success story or effectiveness monitoring, however we land. So the Forest Service is doing this now. They've got a team of folks that head out to large fires and comb over the footprint to find out what kind of effectiveness has occurred. And they're using a really nice dashboard to, that's public facing, in order to show the public, hey, this is what we've done. And so we're looking to do that as well. Maybe, we don't have the same kind of resource managers and, land mass that the feds do, and we're working on private property. So it's a little bit different, but this is our first stab at it. So there'll be more to come on that. Does anybody have any questions or input? I see some folks putting some stuff in the chat about naming this, so appreciate that. Okay, hearing none. Josh, you want to give us a quick shout out about ADA compliance?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. The due date has come and gone already for fire plans, and I appreciate everybody getting those in. in a timely fashion. However, several of them, both north and south, were not, the PDFs were not ADA accessible. So with that, we've been working with both Chiefs Warden and Butler, north and south respectively, to work through that ADA compliance. We've provided a few links as far as previous training videos done by Evan out of Sacramento IT, and then a couple of other documents. We realized that some of the stuff that we've provided is how to create an ADA accessible Word document. And even if you have 100% compliance in Word, you then save that as a PDF, then PDF does not always make that ADA accessible. So with that, we've been working through several of those plans. Just want to remind you guys of the due date of this Friday, the 21st, I believe. The intent originally was for us to be able to get those plans, review the accessibility, review the plans, and then present them to the July Board of Forestry meeting. With that, we're not sure that that's going to give us enough time to review the plans and get it on the agenda. But we'd still like to keep that due date of the 21st to give us ample time to review everything and get it on the agenda for review for the Board of Forestry and get everything posted to the intranet. So I'm going to stop talking, defer to, and I'll start with Chief Warden in the north for kind of an update on where those plans are sitting up there.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. For the north, we're looking about 3 plans left. The folks that have gone through and gotten ADA help. So thank you to you and your team there in Sacramento for answering some of the questions that we couldn't quite nail down ourselves. But we have a few left, hoping to get those by midweek, and we'll be in talks every day to get them to you guys.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks so much for the update. And as always, and I'll still go to Chief Butler, but you know, if anything comes up, we're here to help and help you guys get all that stuff done. So Chief Butler, do you have something for us for the South?
I do, and I apologize ahead of time. I'm having connectivity issues this morning, so I don't have my camera on. But we've been hammering through these things. We've got about 75% I'll have as of today. I've got a couple that have some major issues, and you're well aware of one of them. What we found, just to give everybody a heads up in Word, is you can kind of have everything looking okay and pass the, well, you can have it pass the compliance without having your formatting correct. So with those formatting issues, when they convert to PDF, it's a nightmare. There's way too much to fix in the back end. So I do have one plan that we're pretty much going to rebuild, and looking for some support on that. Another issue we found was DocuSign. And DocuSign definitely threw a wrench in a couple of our PDFs there. Doesn't give us any activity to it. So we've got to work around for that. So same thing with Jack. I think I've got about 2 that we're reworking on, and unfortunately I have one that I haven't seen yet. I'm still working with that unit every day, trying to get to it. It's an update and a unit chief issue or signature issue. So but we're looking to still try to meet that deadline as of Friday. So.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks so much. I appreciate the update. Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a full ADA compliance training, but just to make you folks aware, if you are going to take and submit this to your unit chief or somebody for approval, and they DocuSign this document, that document then becomes locked. And so you no longer have the ability, you can run the accessibility checker on a DocuSign PDF, but you cannot go in and make any changes or edits to it. So that's one of the things that you want to do prior to submitting a DocuSign for signatures. There are a few workarounds, and again, I'm not going to turn this into a whole training, but just keep that in mind of ensuring your PDF is ADA accessible prior to having it DocuSigned by anybody, because that just creates a lot more issues down the road. So again, I appreciate everybody's hard work in all of this, and we realize that A lot of the stuff is somewhat easy to work through, but there are some very technical issues, especially working through graphs and headers and a few of those other things. And sometimes it's going to require a full rebuild of some of those graphs because of merged cells and stuff like that. So I'll kind of end it there. Other than I've talked with Chief Warden in the north, and we know we talked about a new fire plan template going forward of getting something done. But until we have something, a new template possibly, or something else, we're talking about trying to create almost a PDF style template of our current fire plan that is just kind of a fill in the blank style that you can build in PDF. So we're not building something in Word, trying to convert to PDF, and then again, working through these accessibility issues. So hopefully more to come on that. But we just need to get through this first hurdle of getting these 2023 plans updated. So again, appreciate everybody's hard work, and always any questions, we're here to help. Reach out through your region BCs, and we're on standby. End of report.
All right, thanks, Chief Baker. We'll move on to, does anybody have anything to add on that? I just want to make it open if anybody wants to shout out anything on that topic. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Chief Witt, and he's got a presentation for us on SRA review.
Yeah, and I do have just a couple awareness items. Thank you, everybody, for your help on the environmental document part of the CalMapper QA/QC. And thanks again for the continued efforts on updating CalMapper with the year-end stuff in the next fiscal year-end items in the next month or two. We're going to make a pretty hard push to get CalMapper locked for the year. So just go ahead and continue to work hard on that. What do you got, Josh?
Chief Witt, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen real fast. It's funny that you said that. I was just kind of working on some stuff right now. So hang on just a second. So I was running some rough numbers today. And here's just some CalMapper stuff at a glance. With that being said, the environmental review, we're working on a few. I know there's been a lot of questions in regards to this, and we're working through some of the stuff in regards to ARC review and environmental compliance and stuff. And so there may be some changes to these numbers. Let me see. Hopefully you guys can read that. So currently right now, here's where we stand for environmental review. Again, these are pre-changes to how the tractor's pulling some numbers. So for you guys in the north, 54 still low hanging there, and 24 in the south for fire plan with some environmental review. But again, these might change as far as how the tractor pulls that. Moving into some of the standard reports that are in the tractor real quick. Activity spanning fiscal year. I ran the report right now, and I hate to call out numbers. I didn't really realize I'd be presenting this morning, or call out units. But in the north, you guys have a couple, 9 of them that are currently spanning. You have activities spanning fiscal year, and in the south TCU, you got 2 of them. So a couple of date errors. And again, this says current fiscal year. I haven't edited my document. This is last fiscal year. In the north, 28 of those fire plans have some activities after the project end date, and 10 of them in the south. So no start date at all in the plan. CSR, you guys got 2 of them. And project has an end date, but no start date. TGU is the only one that I saw. You guys have 3 of them. Any questions, again, work out. And then right now, running the status errors, there's nothing for the last fiscal year on status errors. So great job on that. So that's just a quick down and dirty glance at that, but we'll be getting some detailed information and seeing once Rebecca's run some reconciliation reports. We clean up this environmental stuff. You guys have done a great job staying on top of this. All your efforts with the QA/QC over the last year have really it's paying off, because it doesn't look to me like we've got a lot to clean up to start locking last year's numbers. So a report on that. Thanks, Chief Witt.
Okay, I'm going to start by sharing my screen too. So I'm going to try to. So in 1 year, we're going to start with a new 5-year SRA review. And there's nothing that you have to do immediately right now, but you need to have awareness on what the process is. And when we start the process in 1 year, you'll already want to be involved in it and have a good understanding. When we start it officially in a year, it'll almost be too late to push through any radical changes. So we're going to go into detail in this on our November pre-fire workshop. We've got that scheduled in San Diego for mid-November. And we'll go into detail at that point. So this PowerPoint is going to do two things. It's going to show what we've done in the past, and it's going to give a quick look to the future. So everybody knows our responsibility area is divided pretty much a third, a third, a third, and we use standard colors to show that. We use gray for LRA, we use yellow for SRA, and we use green for FRA. SRA is important for quite a few things. First, SRA defines who has financial responsibility for preventing and suppressing fires. That's defined in 4137. We also use it for fire hazard severity zones. We now use it for real estate disclosures. We have used it for the fire prevention fee. That was suspended about 4 years ago. The SRA fire prevention fee is not gone. It's still on the books, and it is set to return, barring any legislative action, in the early 2030s, 2031, I think exactly. And it could come back sooner by the legislature. So it's just an awareness that we need to have. SRA is also important for Blue Book. That's our wildland staffing. It's important for our contract counties for Gray Book and Red Book, our statistics reporting. And the legislature also uses it as a broad definition for WUI. Frequently, they'll write bills that are designed to be effective in WUI areas, and they'll either use SRA or they'll use fire hazard severity zones to kind of define what a WUI area is. I'm not going to go through the legal basis on SRA, but it is in Public Resource Code, and that's how you get there. We are going to talk individually about some of the codes, and I'm just going to do some highlights. So 4125 to 4128. 4125 talks about the Board of Forestry and Fire Protection shall classify all lands within the state. So that's our authority to classify SRA, and then also to review. And we are to review every 5th year. And as part of that review process, we're required, shall also notify county assessor's office and other local government cooperators. Effectively, we need to make the AHJs, the agency having jurisdiction, know that changes are coming. The next section, 4126, kind of gives a definition of what SRA is. Wholly or partially covered by forest or trees, or capable of producing forest products, timber, brush, undergrowth, or grass, which protect the soil from excessive erosion, lands in area which are used for or useful for range or forage purposes. Essentially, if it's got wildlands on it, and if it's a watershed, then it should be SRA. Now, there are some exclusions. Any land owned or controlled by the federal government cannot be FRA. That can be a post office within a unincorporated community. If the post office owns the land, I'll just make up an example. Let's say Twainhart. If it's not an incorporated city and there's a post office that's federally owned, that tiny little quarter-acre chunk of post office is going to be FRA. That's the small example. And then on the biggest example, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of square miles of Forest Service land, because it's federally owned, it can't be FRA. Also, lands inside the exterior boundaries of any city. So you can't have LRA islands within, you can't have SRA islands within an incorporated city. So if it's incorporated, it's LRA. And then any other lands that don't meet that definition, those are going to be your agriculture lands, development. 4128 talks about lines of convenience, and we can use road, pipeline, streams, power lines, any other easily recognizable landmark as a arbitrary boundary. So the important thing to remember about lines of convenience is lines of convenience cannot remove SRA. If you're going to draw a line of convenience, you're going to draw it into LRA and add LRA into SRA. So lines of convenience cannot be used to erase watershed. By the way, for my team, as I'm presenting, I can't see any questions that might come up. So if you see any hands raised, just interrupt me and let me know.
Copy, will do.
So what's coming up with SRA and add-ons? And when we look backwards in time, we thought that we were going to be doing FHSC remap immediately following the 2020 SRA review. That didn't quite occur on that timeline. We're stuck into it right now. And here we are. The next statewide review will be in 2025, and special reviews performed as needed, and we do that annually with automatic reviews. So if we have cities incorporate, that land automatically falls out of SRA. If we have new federal ownership, that land automatically falls out of SRA. So we call those our annual automatic reviews. Essentially, they take place immediately as they happen, but we kind of aggregate those and make those effective. It's really nice when we can make them effective coincident with our fiscal year. So we try to do that for July 1. And we do have other special reviews outside of the 5-year review process. And a great example of that was in 2013. We had an SRA review because we created a fire prevention fee where if you lived in SRA, you had to pay that fee. So suddenly the lines of convenience were not that convenient if you had to pay the $150. And the goals of the SRA review is that we have it consistent, not only from the contract counties and the units, but the regions are consistent, and it's consistent across the state. It allows us to capture in a timely fashion land use changes. It allows sufficient time for local government to plan for what those changes mean. And it allows public involvement about the decisions of classification for SRA. It was a big deal with the SRA fee. It turned out not to be nearly as big of a deal without the SRA fee. And some really important things for all the PFEs on the call right now. This is an easy item to get mixed up. It happens at the unit level, it happens at the region level, it happens at the Sacramento level, and these are actually, in the past, these have been test questions if you're promoting to battalion chief or promoting to assistant chief. These are test questions that you can expect either at the exam level or the job level. So the first thing is SRA, the process as defined by Public Resource Code is the sole responsibility of CAL FIRE and the Board of Forestry alone. Whereas DPA is a product of the California Master Mutual Aid Agreement, CFMA, and is coordinated through the CWCG. DPA is an annual activity, and I've got a helpful chart that'll show that here next. There it is. So SRA does not equal DPA. Again, these are easy to confuse together. SRA, the purpose for that is to establish legal responsibility for fire protection, and it's tied directly to the ownership of the individual parcels. It makes a lot of checkerboarded land. DPA, on the other hand, looks to eliminate by agreement those checkerboards. SRA is established by the legal requirements in Public Resource Code. DPA is established by agreements within the CFMA. The review process for SRA is every 5 years with our special annual updates, whereas DPA is updated annually per the CFMA. SRA is maintained by CAL FIRE by law through the Board of Forestry, and DPA is through the CFMA agreements. Cost implications for SRA, it's the protection responsibility that they have within their contract, and it's also for the CAL FIRE resources. It's identified within Blue Book. So Gray Book and Blue Book. DPA, on the other hand, those costs are determined by DPA and the CFMA cost sharing agreements, balance of acres. For federal and state boundaries, all FRA is essentially defined by a parcel ownership, whereas with DPA, again, it's those annual agreements. There are counties with no CAL FIRE SRA. There's 2 right now. There's San Francisco and Sutter. DPA, on the other hand, is all of the contract counties plus San Francisco, Sutter, Sierra, and Alpine counties. And you'll hear terms like SRA responsibility, but federal DPA. So those counties listed are on the chart. Legal ramifications, we already talked about that on some previous slides. FHSC, real estate disclosures, defensible space inspections, potentially the SRA fees, and in DPA, it's just an agreement on how those lands are going to be protected. The authority for SRA vests with the board, and the authority with DPA vests by the CWCG as per the CFMA. So there's what checkerboards look like. This is the Greater Tahoe area, and you can see that with SRA, you're going to have a lot of checkerboards. With DPA, we try to smooth some of that out. This particular view, you've got the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit. That's a Forest Service forest. The surrounding Lake Tahoe, you've got Humboldt Toyabe. To the north, you've got, to the north of that, the Tahoe National Forest. You've got the Plumas National Forest. On the top left corner, you've got the El Dorado National Forest. So our DPA agreements look to smooth out these checkerboards and divide up responsibilities. And where do we do that? We do that in our annual operating plans. You can tell this is an old slide deck. I haven't replaced it with a screenshot from the new and improved intranet. This is where DPA is defined, and for the pre-fire engineers that have been in position more than a couple months, you probably are involved in your unit's annual operating plan. Maybe your unit might even have a couple of them. You're probably producing maps and data and statistics. So that's where our agreements live. Now what I want to do is I want to look forward with this slide for our timelines, what we're expecting, and then in just a second or two, we're going to start looking backwards as an example of what we did 5 years ago. So we've already had a couple SRA changes in September. We published the latest. It was SRA 22_2, and you should recognize that naming convention. 22 is the year and _2 is the version number. So that means that we did have the 22_1. We probably rolled that out in July. We noticed that there were some edits that need to be made that weren't captured. So we created a 22_2. Currently, July of 2023, we've already had new SRA changes take effect. That layer is 23_1. We're anticipating another set of automatic changes to take place in July of 2024. Again, the automatic changes. And then probably tentatively in fall of 2024, we're going to start the SRA review process. That'll go through spring of 2025. It'll go through 5 different steps that we'll outline in the future. It's going to be the unit, the region, and Sacramento reviews, followed up by the director review and final Board of Forestry approval. That new layer will be 25_1 or 2, and it will also include our automatic changes. So let's, those were the timelines that we have with the actual SRA boundaries. This is probably what we're looking at beginning next fall. We'll have the unit and contract county review, followed by a regional review to make sure that all of the units within the region are following the same process. That's going to conclude. And then we hand it off to a state review. That'll be in early 2025. I will carry that forward to the director for the department's final stamp of approval. And then afterwards, we deliver it to the Board of Forestry, where they open up a public comment period and then set an implementation date on or about July 2025. Generally, when we do this review, it's a reductive review, and I'll show that in just a couple minutes at each step of the way, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, to 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Generally, proposed changes get removed and nothing really ever gets added within that process. So let's take a look at some old timelines, and I'm going to show you this is a snapshot in time. The director's review was just concluded, and we're now handing it off to the Board of Forestry to review and open up that public comment period. So we start off with the unit and contract county review. We're looking for 3 primary types for evaluation: either islands of SRA or islands of LRA, and then intrusions where you've not got an island, but you've actually got that growth into LRA or SRA. And when that process was concluding, the unit and the contract county staff proposed those changes. They consulted with local fire agencies, and I'll show you what that looks like afterwards. We've got our GIS tools that helped with that. At the end of that process, we ended up with 148 changes, requests that were being submitted. Some of those were automatic changes, and some of those changes were withdrawn for future analysis. Then that was handed off to the region. The region again reviews that it was done consistent. The contract counties, all changes had approvals from the administrative unit. And at the completion of this, what we ended up with was we went from 148, we've reduced that down to about 115. We did require a couple edits at the region review. So you can see that we've already reduced it from 148 down to 115. And then it went on to the state review. We examined that all the documentation was there. We conducted any on-site inspections if necessary. And as part of that process, we dropped from 115 down to 107. So we removed 8 automatic changes, and what we were left with is about 30 changes. We're pulling land into LRA, about 39,000 acres, and about 69 changes were going to SRA, about 59,000 acres. And what that means is we had a net increase in SRA of about 20,000 acres that I was going to deliver to the director. And when we broke it down by region, we saw that in the north, most of the land went to SRA. We had about 23,000 acres, and you can see the breakdown. And in South region, the net was almost break even, with a little bit going to LRA. And by contract county, you can see the contract county had about 9,200 acres of new SRA. So now I'm delivering it to the director. All the changes were rubber stamped isn't the right word, but they were approved as presented. And at this point in time, we sent letters off to all those local agencies, the fire departments, letting them know that we were carrying these changes forward to the Board of Forestry. And again, not to sound mean, but this is a department and board-driven process. We effectively are the sole decider for this. We can take input, but we get to be the decision makers on this process. And the director recommended to the board that we implement it in 90 days, which would bring us right about to the 1st of July. So now what tentatively you're looking at here is me getting ready to take it to the Board of Forestry, recommending an implementation date, and everything's good to go. So what kind of changes, again, do we look at making? So city annexing new lands, that's automatic. Changes of ownership to and from federal, that's automatic. And land use changes, so these are the 5-year ones. It's no longer producing forest products, forage. It's no longer watershed. Effectively, we've sealed it all up with pavement or crops. I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. This is an example that we've used multiple cycles. This is an example of urbanization. You've got all those little tiny squares or parcels. Essentially, you've got more than 3 dwelling units per acre, over more than 250 acres. So when you multiply that 3 dwelling units times 250, you end up with 750. So developments of greater than 750 dwelling units that meet that size requirement are a good candidate to remove from state responsibility area. Now, as you look at this development, you've also got the ability to add lines of convenience. So lines of convenience can chew into LRA, but they can't remove SRA. You could it would be unlikely that you'd exclude those open space parcels surrounding the subdivision. So this would almost certainly become an island of SRA, surrounded by a small sliver to the west of SRA, and then the much larger island to the right, to the east, before it hits that other development. So that's an example of development or densification. Then we've got an example of agriculture. What you see on the screen here is land going into SRA, and specifically what we're looking at is if it's a long-term crop, like an orchard or a vineyard that is irrigated and cultivated, it can fall out of SRA and become LRA. Using a vineyard as an example, or even an orchard, if they've got no-till management practices, so they're not taking a disc through their orchard, they're not taking a disc through their vineyard and cutting up the dead dry grass underneath, it's not cultivated, that has the potential of remaining as SRA. And then also separately on the agricultural side of things, annuals such as row crops and grains are not a long-term modification, and we can see that as the land goes fallow for that next year, suddenly grass grows up in it, and now it's ready to burn as rangeland. So that's an example in two different directions of how ag lands go. So at this point, the slideshow's concluded. I've got a couple other tools that I wanted to show, but just to see if anybody has any questions or comments at this point. Seeing none, we're going to move on to some of the tools that we have, and I'll show you how to get to those. So this happens to be our content page within our AGOL account. You can see I've got my organizational tab selected. I typed in SRA tracker, and right there, depreciated, recommended not for use, is our SRA tracker. We're in the process of rebuilding it for this new effort. So you can play around in it now, but it is not functional as to what we're going to want you to do. It will be functional by the time that fully functional by the time that we have our training in November. You can still add stuff to it now, and I'm going to use that as an example right now. So when you click on that SRA tracker, you've got your details page. I can launch it right here. I've also got instructions here. And if I click on this, it will open the PDF document. And if I choose to open the PDF document, it's a 3-page document kind of describing how that tracker works. So we've got tools and we've got instructions on how to use it. The next thing that I'm going to do is actually open up the tracker. And I'll show you some of the functionality on it. Close that, close that, close that. Wait for it. And did my screen, I assume, just go dead?
No, we can still see it.
Excellent. Good. All right. So my favorite example, and I'm going to use this in a variety of ways, is the Sutter Buttes. So I'm going to zoom into the Central Valley just above Sacramento. And the Sutter Buttes is a large, isolated mountain chain. You can see that I've already drawn a draft polygon around it. And it represents about 30,000 acres. It's a big chunk of what could be considered watershed. And as an example, it sits wholly within the Nevada-Yuba Placer unit. but it is also neighbored by the Butte unit to the north and the Sonoma Lake Napa unit to the south and to the west. And there is no CAL FIRE station within about 30 or 45 minutes. There are no CAL FIRE facilities anywhere near it. So if we bring something into SRA, what are we looking at? We're looking at the need for prevention activities, so defensible space inspections. We're looking at the need for Chapter 7A building construction standards. It's now part of our fire hazard severity zones. We've got to have good unit connectivity for that. For emergency response, now we are financially responsible to suppress fires. So you've got no fire station nearby. So it's going to continue to be local government is the primary IA resource. Loma Rica, Nevada Yuba Placer, it's a single engine station. Bangor in Butte is a 2-engine station. Spanish Flat or Brooks over in Sonoma Lake Napa is a 1 or 2-engine station. I can't remember. That might not even be the right station, but between the 3 units, they've got a significant elephant to eat as far as protection on this. Now, having said that, it sounds like it's a big burden for the unit and for the region to adopt, but then the flip side to that is we're already fighting most of the large fires within that boundary. Local jurisdiction requests an extensive resource draw from us, aircraft, dozers, crews. They are exceeded in their ability to protect that. They use what used to be known as the 7 points of light as an agreement to try to get resources in there. And there is a burden to the state. So I could see a unit making an argument that it needs to be brought into SRA, and I could also understand the reasoning behind it, that it maybe it should stay LRA. Having said those things, the discussion that we want to have occurs within the next 12 months. If Nevada Yuba Placer wants to bring it into SRA, I would expect that they would probably reach out to Butte and Sonoma Lake Napa to have those discussions, also including North Region to kind of talk about the pros and cons, and understanding that maybe initially there would not be SRA resources to add to this. However, in the future, that there could be Blue Book resources to add, maybe turning a 1-engine station to a 2-engine station, or adding facilities like a Schedule B station within the island that is the Sutter Buttes. Those are long-term discussions. So the reason that I bring this up as a specific example is the time that you don't want to bring it up is 1 year from now, when the unit has a month to finalize their edits. That would probably be too short of a time frame to adequately address that. So this is a large-scale example of where you want to bring in your unit staff, potentially your neighboring units, definitely region, and have these discussions to facilitate whether or not it's worth bringing in, or if it requires a longer-term discussion. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this tracker to add an area. First, I'm going to examine this one. I can click on it. You can see I've chosen to call it Test Delete and Sutter Buttes. And I put in some comments, but we're gonna add something here. Maybe I've decided this is too big of an area, and I'm just going to aim for the tree-covered area in the center. So I'm going to want to change that to SRA, so I can choose that as my tool, and now it just says start drawing. So I can draw a boundary in. I'll take it all the way down to Pass Road. That's a good line of convenience for me. And now I'll continue it up around the north side and double click to complete. And now it'll open it up. It lets me know what unit it's in. I'll provide a change. So I'll call this North Butte. And I'm going to give it a code. I'll use the drop down menus. And the reason that we're going to do this is because it's watershed. We're recognizing it as an area of watershed. Comments. You know, if I'm going to provide a name for this, I probably need to do test, delete again. I don't want Nevada Yuba Placer to think I'm monkeying in their business. And delete this smaller change after talking to BTU, LNU, and CNR. And if I want to accept that change right now, I can. I can also edit the geometry if I wanted to bump it up further to the north or to the south. I'm going to save that, and lo and behold, now we have another change entered, a donut hole within a donut. So the tracker is that easy. And the other cool part to it, and I'll navigate around a little bit, is we're going to look at some prior changes within the Tuolumne Calaveras unit. Good examples of changes that have come on board and off board are related to ag, and specifically it's related to some nut crops like walnuts or almonds or pistachios. As those irrigated orchards come on board, they're probably going to fall outside of SRA, and as they maybe go fallow, maybe they lose their water rights, they're going to allow it to convert back to rangeland, then maybe it should include into SRA. And I can actually click on these. This happens to be a change from 2010. This was a change from 2000. Just for any of these, I can click on them. Adjusted the line of convenience. This is 2010. For some of these, I'll find, and this one doesn't happen to be it, you might find 2013. This is when the SRA fee took effect. So we had both some pretty significant changes in 2013 and then 2015 as the SRA fee kind of gained in popularity. So the whole purpose of this is to be able to look at the map and look backwards in time. It shouldn't surprise anybody on this front country where you've got ag and maybe going in and out of production, that you do have changes over the years, right? You get a new unit chief in, new king of the kingdom, and he or she decides, you know, operationally what's good SRA, what's a good line of convenience. So sometimes you have these areas go back and forth. One other neat thing that this application does, and because this is a deprecated item, the print widget fell away. But let me show you what that allowed you to produce. So this is Amador El Dorado. It's up Highway 50, just above Folsom. And what they've done is, with some of the densification, industrialization, they drew the shape on a map. And with the print widget that we have enabled, it then produced a symbolized map. And you're thinking, well, what the heck am I going to do with a symbolized map? And what you ended up doing with it is the second page described those edits in detail, and then the third and final page allowed, and it created a signature page. And it just so happened for this signature page, since it's a Schedule A contract, the unit chief and the local government chief is one and the same. You've got both of that as Chief Lindgren. Okay. Couple other items to show. So before I show the last couple things, are there any questions about SRA? Again, nothing right now. If you wanted to look around on the tracker, you're able to, kind of to get an idea of what came before. We've got to rebuild it, refresh some of the layers. It's been neglected for the last 3 or 4 years. And come November, we'll have this tool completely rebuilt, and it'll be ready for you to start dropping in any changes, although in all honesty, you could drop any requests in right now and they'd be preserved. If you do play around in it, I'm going back up to the Sutter Buttes. Please do the delete. We've got all this archived. The way that we've set the rules in the past on this is you can only delete things or edit things that you've done. So if I select one of these, I can choose to delete the geometry. So I'm highlighting this one. You can see that it's here, and I can choose to delete that geometry. And now it's gone. Hearing no questions and seeing nothing in chat, I'll make one last pivot to something that's starting right now. We do have, I did want to talk a little bit about where we are in the legislative cycle. So the budget has been passed, even though the economy looks like it's on a downturn. We've escaped fairly unscathed. I think a big part of that is the legislature recognizing that we are doing a whole bunch of good work, including what we enter into CalMapper, the reports that we provide to the legislature on CalMapper, the success stories that we've relayed to the legislature through CalMapper and through our direct talk with the legislature. The legislature's on recess right now. They get a month off. They come back in almost exactly 1 month. They're in business for a month after that, so mid-August to mid-September, and then they go away for the remainder of the year, not due back in Sacramento until January. We do happen to have a legislative hearing that is starting right now, and the web page that I'm navigated to, it's the California State Assembly. It's the daily file page. If you Google that, it'll bring it up. We do have a committee hearing occurring right now at Sonoma State. It's a relatively unused committee on wildfire prevention. They do have an agenda. We've got my boss's boss, Frank Bigelow, is going to be speaking about the activities that you guys capture, and they've got a couple other speakers, so they're getting ready to start that right now. And other than that, as expected, the legislature, the news media, everybody takes interest in all the work that you do. They recognize it and appreciate it. So good job, everybody. And that's all I have for this week. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief Witt. I think it's important to note that as we move closer to the 2025 review, that we'll be reaching out to, through Chief Worden and Chief Butler to identify unit contacts that are going to be involved with the SRA review process. And then we'll send out more information about a guide that is used to classify whether or not something meets the criteria of SRA, and it's kind of a dichotomous key that allows you to go through a checklist saying, okay, yes, this meets the criteria, no, it doesn't. And then, that process will be described in the future. So but it's important that everybody on the call be aware that there it is. Scott's sharing it right there. It's not a super easy document to go through. It takes you a little bit to understand it, but it's pretty much the starting point for whether or not you're going to identify an area to be excluded or included as SRA. So having moved through the process myself a couple of times, it takes a second to wrap your head around it, but it is a helpful guide. I don't really have anything else. I do want to open it up to anybody if you have anything for the good of the order. Speak now. And if not, then I guess we'll give everybody an hour back. Okay. I appreciate everybody's time, and as always, feel free to reach out. We're doing everything we can to help support you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.